All right, so get this. The Department of Homeland Security,
Okay.
they just released this new report,
Yeah.
November 14th, 2024,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about AI
Interesting.
in like all the systems that keep the country running,
Yeah, like the...
power grid and water systems,
Yeah.
transportation, all that.
Uh-huh.
It's called critical infrastructure.
And the report doesn't just talk about AI in, like some far-off future.
Right.
This is about the here and now.
Yeah.
And
This is affecting us.
if any of these systems went down,
oh, yeah.
I mean, things would get really messy really quickly for all of us.
No kidding.
Yeah.
The report talks about how AI could help prevent things like blackouts or even detect earthquakes faster.
Mm-hmm.
But it also dives into some of the risks, too.
What's interesting is that the report acknowledges
Okay.
that AI is kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It could lead to some really amazing advancements,
Uh-huh.
but it also creates like new vulnerabilities that we need to be prepared for.
All right, so let's unpack this report.
Yeah.
It's called the Roles and Responsibilities Framework for Artificial Intelligence in Critical Infrastructure.
Okay.
Sounds a little dry. I know.
It is a dense report.
But stick with me because it gets really interesting.
Yeah, it was created by the DHS
Okay.
with help from
With help from who?
some really big names in the AI world.
Oh, really?
Folks like Sam Altman from OpenAI,
Okay.
Satya Nadella from Microsoft.
Wow.
They even got Vicky Holub, the CEO of Occidental Petroleum, involved.
Oh, wow. Sundar Pichai from Google, too.
Yeah, they got everybody.
That's a pretty impressive group.
It is.
But here's the thing for you, the listener.
Okay.
This framework,
Yeah,
it's completely voluntary.
that's right.
Yeah.
At least for now.
Right.
It's not about regulation,
Mm-hmm.
but it sets the stage for how we can develop and use AI responsibly in these critical areas.
Yeah.
Think of it as a roadmap to avoid potential problems down the road.
I like that roadmap analogy.
Yeah.
And they're really pushing for a whole-of-nation approach,
Yes,
which means everyone has a role to play.
absolutely.
That includes you listening right now.
And to understand your role,
Yeah.
we need to understand the risks involved.
Okay.
The report breaks them down into 3 categories.
Okay, give me.
Attacks using AI, attacks targeting AI, and design and implementation failures.
Okay, let's start with attacks using AI.
Yeah.
Are we talking about something like adversaries using AI to launch cyber attacks?
Exactly.
Oh,
Or even physical attacks.
okay.
Think about how AI could be used to create more sophisticated attacks
Mhm.
that are harder to detect and defend against.
Yeah.
And that's a very real concern given the current global climate.
Okay, so that's scary enough.
Mm-hmm.
But what about attacks targeting AI?
Okay.
What does that even mean?
It means finding and exploiting vulnerabilities
Okay.
in the AI systems themselves.
And the AI?
This could cause them to malfunction, make wrong decisions, or even provide false information.
So instead of attacking the systems AI is protecting,
Right.
they're going after the AI itself.
Exactly.
That's pretty sneaky.
It is, and it's something a lot of people don't even consider.
Yeah.
But there's another risk that's just as important.
Okay.
Design and implementation failures.
Right, because even with the best intentions, humans make mistakes.
Yeah.
But when those mistakes happen in AI systems controlling our power grid or water supply,
Uh-huh.
the consequences could be huge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why this framework is so important.
Sure.
It's about mitigating those risks by clearly defining roles and responsibilities.
So who are the key players here?
The framework focuses on 5
Okay.
cloud and compute providers,
Mhm.
AI developers,
Okay.
critical infrastructure owners and operators,
Uh-huh.
civil society,
Okay.
and the public sector.
Okay, let's break those down.
Sure.
Who are the cloud and compute providers?
Sure.
Are we talking about companies like Amazon and Google?
You got it. They're essentially the landlords of the AI world,
Okay.
providing the computing power, the servers and data storage
Uh-huh.
needed to run these systems.
Hmm.
But that also means they have a responsibility
Okay.
to secure their infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
and the data they hold.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And what about the AI developers?
Okay.
The ones actually creating these AI systems?
Think of them as the architects.
Okay.
They need to design AI systems that are safe, secure, and aligned with human values.
Yeah.
That's a tall order, especially when you consider the potential for misuse.
So it's not just about building an AI that works. It's
Uh-huh.
about building one that's inherently resistant to attacks.
Yeah.
manipulation,
Yeah.
and doesn't accidentally cause more problems than it solves.
Precisely.
Okay.
Now, the people actually using these AI systems,
Right.
those are the critical infrastructure owners and operators.
Uh-huh.
They're integrating AI into things like power grids,
Yeah.
transportation networks, and water treatment facilities.
So they're on the front lines, and they have the responsibility to make sure they're using AI in a safe and secure way.
Exactly.
That's where our listeners start to see how they're impacted.
Exactly, because the next player is civil society,
Okay.
which includes all of us.
All right.
We have a role in advocating for ethical AI use, pushing for transparency,
Yeah.
and holding everyone else accountable.
I love that.
Yeah.
It means we're not just passively accepting whatever AI is thrown at us.
Right.
We have a voice in shaping how this technology is used.
And finally, we have the public sector,
Okay.
which means the government.
Well.
They have a responsibility to provide oversight, set standards, enable research, and lead by example in their own use of AI.
Okay, so we have our 5 key players.
Yeah.
The landlords, the architects, the users, the advocates, and the rule setters.
I like that.
But this framework goes beyond just defining roles.
Right.
It lays out specific responsibilities for each player, right?
That's right. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
It's about translating these high-level goals into concrete actions.
All right, I'm ready to dive into those specifics.
Okay.
Let's start with the cloud and compute providers.
Right.
One of their key responsibilities is vetting their hardware and software suppliers.
Yeah.
And, hold on, why does that matter to me?
Okay.
I'm just flipping a light switch
Sure.
or turning on the tap.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I care about some tech company's supply chain?
Because if a cloud provider is using hardware that's vulnerable to hacking,
Okay.
that vulnerability could be exploited to disrupt the AI systems they're hosting.
Uh-huh.
And those systems are what keep your lights on and your water running. It's
Oh,
all connected.
I see your point.
Yeah.
So ensuring the entire foundation of these AI systems is secure is crucial, even down to the tiniest components.
Exactly. Seemingly small vulnerabilities can have a ripple effect
Wow.
and cause major disruptions.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the AI developers? Those architects you mentioned.
Yes.
What kind of responsibilities do they have?
One of the most important is designing AI systems that are secure by design.
Okay.
That means building in security considerations from the very beginning of the development process, not as an afterthought.
So it's about creating AI that's inherently more resistant to attacks or manipulation.
Right.
Yeah.
And part of that involves evaluating the potential for dangerous capabilities,
Okay.
meaning AI systems that could be misused to cause harm, either intentionally or unintentionally.
Okay, so we're not just talking about AI that can do cool things, but also about making sure it can't be used for bad things.
Exactly. AI developers have to think not just about what their AI can do, but also what it shouldn't be able to do.
All right, that's 2 down.
Okay.
Let's talk about the critical infrastructure owners and operators.
All right.
What are some of their key responsibilities?
One of the most important is securing their existing IT infrastructure. They can't just add AI to a vulnerable network and expect everything to be fine.
So it's like installing a fancy new alarm system in a house with flimsy locks and paper-thin walls.
Exactly.
It kind of defeats the purpose.
And just as important is the idea of responsible procurement,
Okay.
which means carefully evaluating the AI products and services they buy to make sure they meet strict standards for cybersecurity, privacy, and data integrity.
So it's like buying a car.
Yeah.
You don't just pick the one that looks coolest.
Right.
You check the safety ratings, reliability reports, and make sure it's actually going to protect you.
Precisely. It's about making informed decisions and considering the long-term consequences.
Right. We've covered 3 of our 5 key players.
Okay.
Now, what about civil society?
Yes.
You and me and everyone listening.
Uh-huh.
What role do we play in all of this?
Well, one of the most important things is to educate ourselves about AI
Okay.
and how it could impact critical infrastructure. The more we understand, the better equipped we'll be to advocate for ethical and responsible use.
So knowledge is power.
True, but it's especially relevant in this context.
Oh.
With knowledge comes the ability to push for greater transparency from those developing and deploying these AI systems.
Yeah.
We have a right to know how these systems are being used and what safeguards are in place.
And how do we do that?
Well,
Do we just start writing angry letters to our elected officials?
That's certainly one option,
Okay.
but there are many ways to get involved.
Okay.
We can support organizations doing research and advocacy in this area,
Uh-huh.
engage in public discussions, raise awareness within our communities,
Okay.
and even participate in developing standards and best practices.
So it's about being informed, engaged citizens, not just passive consumers.
Exactly. And that brings us to our final player,
Okay.
the public sector, which in this case refers to the government.
Right.
Their role is complex and multifaceted.
Okay, let's break it down. What are some of the key responsibilities the government is taking on in this AI-powered future?
First and foremost, they need to lead by example
Okay.
in their own use of AI, demonstrating a commitment to ethical practices, transparency, and accountability.
So no preaching responsible AI while deploying facial recognition systems without proper oversight or safeguards.
Exactly. They need to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
I like that.
And beyond their own use,
Like-
they have a responsibility to enable and support research
Uh-huh.
into AI safety and security.
So they need to fund the brilliant minds who are trying to figure out how to keep these AI systems from going rogue.
Precisely, and perhaps most importantly,
Okay.
they have a responsibility to develop and implement oversight mechanisms.
So they're the referees making sure everyone is playing by the rules.
In a sense, yes, they need to set standards, define best practices, and ultimately hold those developing and deploying AI accountable.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but it's starting to feel very real, isn't it?
It is.
AI isn't just some abstract concept anymore.
Right.
It's woven into the systems that keep our society running.
That's exactly why this report and the framework it proposes are so important.
Yeah.
It's a call to action for all of us to be proactive in shaping the future of AI in critical infrastructure.
All right, everyone, take a deep breath and grab a refill of whatever keeps your brain humming.
Yeah.
Because when we come back, we're going to dive even deeper into this report
Okay.
with some specific examples of how these responsibilities play out in the real world.
Sounds good.
Welcome back. I'm ready to dig into some real-world examples from the report.
Okay.
What really jumped out at you as like this is a big deal moment?
One that I found particularly thought-provoking
Okay.
was the responsibility of AI developers to clearly label AI-generated content.
Okay.
Think about what that means for critical infrastructure.
Okay, help me connect the dots here.
Yeah.
If an AI can write a report or create an image, how does that impact things like power grids or water systems?
Imagine an AI system generates a fake news report about a major dam failure, and it looks completely real, even fooling experienced journalists.
Yeah.
People panic, start evacuating.
Yeah.
Local authorities are overwhelmed trying to manage the chaos.
Oh, wow. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Even if the dam is perfectly fine,
right.
the AI-generated disinformation could create a real-world crisis,
Absolutely.
putting a strain on emergency response systems
Yeah,
and potentially causing widespread disruption.
exactly. And it's not limited to news reports.
Right.
Think about AI-generated images or videos that could mislead operators of critical infrastructure, causing them to make decisions based on false information.
Yeah.
The consequences could be disastrous.
Okay, that's a pretty sobering thought.
It is.
So this responsibility for AI developers, is it about creating ways to watermark or clearly label AI-generated content?
Exactly.
So it can be identified.
It's about building in safeguards to prevent the spread of disinformation,
Okay.
whether it's intentional or unintentional.
Yeah.
We can't afford to have critical decisions being made based on fabricated information.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What's another example that stands out to you? Maybe something a little less doom and gloom.
One that I find encouraging is the emphasis on human oversight.
Okay.
The report makes it very clear
Yeah.
that critical infrastructure owners and operators need to keep humans in the loop,
Okay.
especially when it comes to consequential decisions.
So we're not just handing over the keys to the kingdom to these AI systems.
Right.
Human judgment still matters.
Absolutely. The framework explicitly states that human operators should retain control over decisions that could impact public safety or critical infrastructure.
Okay.
AI can be a powerful tool, but it's not a replacement for human experience and intuition.
Can you give me like a real world scenario where that would come into play?
Let's say you have an AI system monitoring air traffic control.
Okay.
It detects a potential conflict between two planes and calculates that one needs to change course immediately,
Oh, wow.
instead of automatically issuing that command.
Okay.
The system flags the issue to a human controller
Mm-hmm.
who can then assess the situation,
Yeah.
consider things the AI might not be aware of,
Right.
and make the final call.
So the AI acts like a super smart co-pilot,
Exactly.
but the human pilot is still in command.
It's about combining the strengths of AI with human decision-making
Okay.
to create the safest and most reliable system possible.
That makes sense. But what about accountability? If something does go wrong, who's responsible?
That's where the report's emphasis on building a culture of safety, security, and accountability comes in.
Okay.
It stresses that critical infrastructure owners and operators
Yeah.
need to have clear lines of responsibility and procedures in place to address incidents.
So if an AI-powered system malfunctions and causes like a train derailment,
Yeah.
there's a process to investigate what happened, figure out who's accountable, and prevent it from happening again.
It's about having those systems in place before something goes wrong,
Right.
not scrambling to figure it out afterwards.
Yeah.
This applies to everyone involved.
Yep.
The AI developers who created the system, the cloud provider hosting it, and the operators using it.
It sounds like it's a shared responsibility across the whole AI ecosystem.
Exactly.
No one gets to just point fingers and say, it wasn't me.
Everyone has a role to play in ensuring these AI systems are being used safely and responsibly.
Okay. This is all starting to come together for me, but I have to admit,
Yeah.
it feels a little overwhelming.
Sure.
What can everyday people like me actually do to influence this?
Okay.
It feels like it's all in the hands of big tech companies and the government.
That's where the role of civil society comes in.
Okay.
One of the most powerful things you can do is engage in public discussions and advocate for policies that promote responsible AI development.
So things like contacting my representatives, going to town hall meetings, writing to newspapers, starting a blog about AI.
That kind of stuff.
It's about raising awareness,
Okay.
voicing your concerns, and pushing for greater transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
Remember, this framework is voluntary right now. That means we have an opportunity to shape how it evolves.
And what about research?
Yes,
The report seems to emphasize that a lot.
it does, and for good reason.
Okay.
We need more research into AI safety security bias
Mm-hmm.
and the potential impact on critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
The more we understand,
Right.
the better equipped we'll be to mitigate the risks and harness the potential of AI.
So we need to support the scientists and engineers who are trying to figure out how to keep these systems from going off the rails.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that research needs to be independent, transparent,
Okay.
and accessible to the public.
Yeah.
We can't just rely on the tech companies
Got
to
that.
self-regulate.
Okay. That's starting to make a lot more sense.
Good.
We're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to unpack in this report. Absolutely.
But hopefully you can see why it's such a big deal.
I think so.
This has been incredibly informative. But we've covered a lot of ground, and I'm sure our listeners could use a break.
For sure.
When we come back, we'll wrap up our deep dive on AI and critical infrastructure with some final thoughts and key takeaways. We've covered a lot of ground in our deep dive into this new DHS report on AI and critical infrastructure.
It's a big one.
We talked about the benefits, the risks,
Uh-huh.
the roles and responsibilities of everyone involved,
Yeah.
from the tech giants to everyday citizens like you listening right now.
It's a really complex issue.
Yeah, it is.
But what I find so fascinating is how the report emphasizes this whole-of-nation approach.
Right.
It recognizes that we can't just leave it up to the experts to figure this out. It requires all of us to be informed, engaged, and willing to participate in shaping how AI is developed and used in these crucial areas.
I think that's a really important point.
It is.
It's easy to feel like these big technological shifts are happening to us,
Right.
that we have no control over them.
Yeah.
But this report is saying, no, you actually have a voice in this.
Exactly.
You make a difference.
Absolutely. And it starts with understanding the stakes.
Okay.
We've talked about how AI could make our critical infrastructure more efficient, resilient, and responsive. But we also have to be clear-eyed about the potential downsides.
Right.
If these systems are designed poorly implemented carelessly or targeted by malicious actors, the consequences could be devastating.
We're talking about things that could disrupt our daily lives in a very real way.
Exactly.
Power outages, transportation breakdowns, disruptions to water supplies,
Yeah.
even the spread of misinformation that could lead to panic and chaos.
Exactly. And that's why this framework, even though it's voluntary, is so significant.
Right.
It's a step toward building a future where AI is used responsibly and ethically
Uh,
in critical infrastructure,
yeah.
where we're not just blindly trusting these systems,
Right.
but actively shaping how they evolve.
Okay, so let's say I'm listening to this,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, this is all very interesting,
Sure.
but what can I actually do about it?
Okay.
What would you say, where do I even start?
Well, first of all, pat yourself on the back for being informed and engaged.
Right.
That's the first step.
All right.
The DHS website has a whole section dedicated to AI and critical infrastructure.
Okay.
You can find the full report there,
Mm-hmm.
as well as resources for getting involved.
Great.
There are also organizations like the AI Safety Institute.
Okay.
They're doing incredible work in this area
Yeah.
and are always looking for support.
And don't underestimate the power of talking to your friends, family, and colleagues about this.
Absolutely.
The more we bring this conversation into the open,
Yeah.
the more pressure we put on policymakers and tech companies to prioritize responsible AI development.
I completely agree. We need to make this a mainstream issue, not something that's just being debated in academic circles or tech conferences.
Right.
This is about the future of our society,
Uh-huh.
and everyone deserves a say in how that future unfolds.
That's a great point. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with?
That the future of AI in critical infrastructure is not preordained.
Okay.
It's something we're all creating together right now.
Yeah.
The choices we make today, the conversations we have,
Uh-huh.
the actions we take,
Yeah.
all of that will shape how AI impacts our lives in the years to come.
Wow.
So be informed, be engaged, and be part of the solution.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks.
A huge thank you to you, our expert, for guiding us through this complex and fascinating topic.
It was my pleasure.
And to you, our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you found it insightful and empowering.
We did too.
Remember to subscribe to the deep dive for more explorations of the ideas that are shaping our world.
And we'll see you next time.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.